Welcome to the Dr. Mary Lauder podcast show, where we explore the messy, magical, and deeply human journey of healing. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Lauder, a board-certified osteopathic physician, an accidental shaman, and a lifelong student of human experience. Together, we're going to talk medicine, wellness, and culture in a way that's grounded, perhaps maybe a bit cheeky, but always from the heart. And don't miss Gadgets, Gimmicks, and Gotchas, my reoccurring segment where we lovingly call out the fluff and highlight the stuff that actually works. So grab your favorite brew, coffee, matcha, or that mysteriously green smoothie and settle in. It's time to get this party started with a strong dose of soul medicine. Hello and welcome to the Dr. Mary Lauder podcast show. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Lauder. My guest today is Keri Mangis. She's an author, a speaker, a wholeness advocate, and a cultural critic. She'll be speaking on midlife crisis, the transformation, cultural conditioning, liminal spaces, and the sacred power of personal breakdowns and the rebirth. Together, we will be in conversation about all of this and how she challenges the self-help's industry obsession with linear growth and instead offers a cyclical, soul-centered approach to change, one that honors the messy middle and helps us shed the invisible weight of who we were told to be. So welcome to our conversation. Well, welcome, Keri, to the Dr. Mary Lauder podcast show. We're so glad that you are here as a guest.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And, just a note, you never know when these air. This will air in the winter, but we're in the winter here in the upper Midwest having a great time. You in Minnesota, me in Michigan. So, here we are, sisters in the winter.
Yes, huddling in.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think this conversation will warm people's heart. I think it's an interesting conversation about the power and the opportunity of pausing at menopause. And I often do emphasize that pause. But sometimes in that space, the roles change significantly for women.
Yes.
And it's not just clinically, it's not just the hormone levels, it's not just that estrogen drops. It really is a lot of things drop away and they become not only metaphorical, but they also can become very literal, can't they?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, as we go into this, I would like to hear about your recent, not recent, but personal approach and personal story about how you came into talking about this subject, what your experience was with some personal challenges in these areas, perhaps, and what led you to become really a voice in this space.
Thank you for that question. So I have been it's a yoga teacher and alternative health practitioner for many years. And yeah, I think in my 20s and 30s, becoming something was very important to me. I mean, ever since the time we were little, we've been asked, what are you going to be when you grow up? And we internalize that. And it becomes sort of a driving force in our lives. And, uh, um, I've had a lot of shifts and changes, but everything's always kind of connected, right? There's
Mhm.
one thing leads to the other, and there's always been some kind of understanding. And I think I came into this time of life, and all of a sudden, a lot of my responsibilities began to fall away. The kids move away. Um, there's more space. And I gave up some of my practices in terms of caring for other people.
Mhm.
And I stepped into something that felt like a brand new space. It felt like, I think what I'd like to do is be more of an elder.
Mhm.
And this is a term that isn't used very often in the West. Plenty of indigenous cultures use it and have their elders and their cultural elders. But I started looking into this idea of what is an elder.
Mhm.
And it was inviting to me. And I felt it calling to me. But then I thought, yes, but at the same time in the West, what we're dealing with in our 50s is this thing called invisibility syndrome.
Oh, okay.
right? Where women over 50 say that they increasingly feel more and more invisible.
Mhm.
Well, if you're invisible, it's going to be really hard for you to play the role of the elder.
Yes.
And I wonder, okay, so all of these questions start coming up for me.
Mhm.
And, what is the role of patriarchy in all of this? What has what has our culture taught us about what women are supposed to do as we get older?
Mhm.
And I thought, well, it tells us we're supposed to get quieter. It tells us we're supposed to be less problematic. We're supposed to just age gracefully, right? And I don't want anything to do with that idea, right? I want to age into something that feels powerful,
Mhm.
age into something that is more connected with other people and less focused on my own personal roles and titles and accomplishments and all of those things. Marriages don't matter to me as much anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah. The accolades, the praise, the acceptance. All I want to do is use my voice and share what I have learned over the years
Mhm.
and guide us into some new ways of being and seeing one another and caring for one another.
Mhm.
And whether or not the menopause has actually done that,
Mhm.
and I suspect it has. In fact, I suspect that that's the purpose of menopause.
Mhm. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, there was a physician who wrote a book a number of years ago and talked about the arc of our female health from menarche into menopause. And then if you take that and extrapolate that, you look at that entire time frame and it's as if you were to put that into a month cycle.
Mm,
And all of a sudden, when I started teaching from that perspective to my patients, their month to month cycle, and then the perimenopause into menopause, and then what we may even label as postmenopause started to make sense. Patterns lined up of maybe PMS, premenstrual syndrome, premenstrual dysphoric and depression, heavy menses, irregular menses. Then as they hit perimenopause, that also began. They had more problems up and down. They thought they should be able to sail through. There was more discontent. There was more um, internal critic. And so then I began asking him, well, what happened every 28 days with you? How was that cycle? Oh, this is like the same thing, but on steroids or under a microscope. I go,
uh,
exactly.
yes.
I said, "What if that becomes kind of our paradigm of, we learn from that arc?"
Yes. Well, we women, we're cyclical beings.
Mhm.
We're not linear,
Yeah.
but we're trying to operate in a linear, hierarchical world.
Yes. Yes,
And
I think that's
so,
true. Yes.
and so when you talk about that discontent, boy, yeah, I think that discontent is one of the most valuable things that can happen for us in our lives. And
See about that because that's a
yes,
comfortable spot.
well, it is. And we're taught to avoid it.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, we are taught to chase contentment. We're taught to chase comfort. And yet, why would we move? Why would we change? Why would we reflect? Why would we reevaluate our lives if we're always comfortable and contented?
Mhm.
Discontent to me, and the fact that we women get it more often, tells me that we women are supposed to be transitioning, transforming like a snake shedding its skin
Mm.
on a very regular basis.
That makes sense. That makes
Mm.
sense. And we do shed our skin in some levels at, every 28 days, right?
Yes.
And that whole cycle of, growing or releasing an egg, and then whether or not it's fertilized and implanted and, pregnancy takes hold or not, that's then another every 28 days, a death and rebirth cycle.
Well, and Dr. Mary, don't they say too that every 7 years our entire cell structures
They do.
regenerate? So we are built for transformation. We're not built for stasis. for, just to settle. Yeah. And so I think this menopause time, as the symptoms increase, it's the knocking on the door.
Mhm. It really is, and so interesting, so leaning a little bit further into the discontent, because what arises frequently in that is the anxiety,
Mm.
and I use anxiety as a pointer to what's going on. What does a person need to know? What do I need to know when I feel anxious? What do I need to know to feel safe? And hopefully something's over. Now, it might not be over, but how do I feel safe in it?
Mm.
And that's really what I'm seeking is safety. Now, you can be safe and be in a very unsafe place, but know you're safe, or you can be safe and be in a safe place and still feel unsafe. And so it's a matter of how do we find that perspective and how do we attach to what anxiety could be as a teacher, as a pointer, as a helper versus a diagnosis or something we have to squelch with a tablet or prescription or even you know, an app, say to so to speak.
Sure. Well, I don't know if we've had a chance to talk about my first book, but my first book is called Embodying Soul, A Return to Wholeness.
Okay.
And it is a journey of me learning how to come into my body and to come into dialogue with all of my emotions,
Okay.
particularly my more troubling ones, such as anxiety and depression. And so, what I did in this book, it was kind of fun. I personified my emotions. I gave them voice, I gave them language,
Mhm,
and I interact with them in the book.
mhm,
In doing so, I did learn a lot about my emotion called anxiety. I
mhm,
did learn to have compassion for this emotion because, yes, it wants to keep me safe.
mhm,
And so I learned to come into dialogue and say, okay, I see you. I see what you're wanting. I'm asking you now to trust me.
mhm,
And me, as in my soul, trust me on this path of the unknown. Trust me on this path of intuition
mhm,
and trust that we will be okay. I'm not saying that this has prevented or stopped my anxiety. What it has done is allowed me to accept it, to embody it, to partner it with other emotions such as joy, such as contentment, and to just that's the whole point of this book is it's all embodied in me now. It all gets to be there. It all gets to have its say. But at the end of the day, I make the decisions.
mhm. And you sounds like as if you're making that from a position of grounded confidence,
Mm,
of being centered in and connected to who you are,
yes.
which, I use the mantra, "That's the safest place to be, connected to yourself, because from there you can go anywhere." And so, because 'cause you've
Yes.
got it all together, because it's there and you're connected.
Yes.
And so, that speaks too of a lot of resiliency and a lot of strength and emotional maturity. So that even could be in those places of pause that we stop and think what we want the next part to unfold as for us.
Yes.
And, there's not a lot of answers. Well, I say this, there are answers, but not a lot of the answers are good for women in middle age. It's pharmaceutical based. It's either pharmaceutical based and there's something wrong with you, or you need to be on the wellness trend and hit the gym so hard that you are buffed and drinking green juice till you turn green and your hands turn orange from carrots, or you age gracefully, whatever that means, or you give up. And there's this weird space in there that I think we need to put in totally personalized approaches for people. What are your goals? What are your things you would like to do? what is your family history you need to know emotionally, medically, socially, spiritually, so you can navigate that next half of your life in a way that you really can co-create. Because as you say, when you were younger, you were like, "I wanna do this, I wanna earn that, I wanna be known for that." It is labels, it is goals, it is very concrete things, that becoming.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important stage to have because that gives you the the grounding and gives you the experience for that next phase of, "Now what?" When the ground comes out from underneath you, who am I really? What lessons stuck? What things don't I want? What things do I want? What now is really important? Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. I mean, menopause is finally this opportunity to stop just trudging forward.
Yeah.
Right. And it does open up a liminal space, a
Mhm,
space in between this who I was and who I will be.
mhm.
And when you talk about this individualized support, yes, the only way we can understand what that's going to look like for us is if we take this pause. If
Yes.
we just keep trudging forward day in, day out, well, we're not going to be able to know what's best for us.
Yeah.
We don't spend a lot of time in reflection in this culture, in looking back, hindsight, exploring what has worked for us the past. What do I really need? And what I see in this space is I see an opportunity for
Mhm.
initiation into a new way of being. I mean, we have initiations for birthdays, we have them for graduations, we
Mm.
have ceremonies and initiations for weddings and other changes of identity and shifts in lifestyle.
Mhm.
Menopause comes along and we're just expected to kind of quietly endure it.
Yeah,
And we do. Women are.
and hopefully not get arrested.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Mhm,
what would it look like to have an initiation? Some kind of, and this is what I talk about, is this idea of a pause day in menopause,
mhm,
where we take a day and we say, or we take a month, or we take a year, or we take whatever, and we say, who I was and who do I want to be? This initiation, this opportunity to say, what would it look like to become an elder?
mhm,
Because that, again, that's what we're called to do. That's what women are called to do, I think.
mhm,
That's the whole menopause, the whole point of the transition is to bring us into a place of being the wise woman.
mhm. Would, elder also be like a crone?
Yes. Well, it's interesting that you asked that because I just spoke with another woman who said she wants to see another archetype in between there.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Yeah, so something like a menopausal woman and then an alchemist and then the crone.
Okay,
So I think it's in shift. I think it's in flux and I think we still get to create it.
yeah. That's interesting because and the other thing is an elder what if the elder began earlier? Let's say 38, 35, because of when often perimenopause actually truly begins. I mean, we there's so much we don't know clinically, and then the question is too, what do we know historically as to what records we have from, menstrual and menarche histories of women for, hundreds of years. I don't know that they even exist. But if you were to look at that time frame of what the length of a woman's fertility years would be to see how they've changed and shifted through the culture and you would have to say environmental exposures and all those types of things that we encounter on the planet, right? It'd be interesting.
It will, and it would be very helpful for the culture. I
Yeah.
mean, it's certainly something that we're lacking in Western culture is elders. I mean, instead, we come up with this idea of the hero.
Yeah.
And, we look for someone to save us. We don't look for people to guide us. And it's very different things, you
It,
know.
it is so not even they couldn't so what about like being the hero of their own journey, how Joseph Campbell talks about that with the hero's
Mhm.
journey.
Mm. It's interesting because when you talk to Joseph Campbell and in his interviews, he will actually say that this structure is from a man's point of view.
It is. That's right.
And so there is this movement now to move into a heroine's journey, which is more about a descent down into the underworld. You know, and that's different for women, I think.
That is truly different.
Mhm.
All right. So, how would we do the descent into the underworld? What do you recommend?
Well, I think sometimes life just brings us there
Okay.
through breakdown, through crisis, through undoing, through unraveling. And it's just that we're always called to overcome, right? That's our self-help world. Overcome, get over it. Don't stay down too long. The quicker you get up, the better.
Hmm.
And I want to say, no, let's start a movement where we say, let's stay down for a minute. Let's just see what happens. Let's not seek enlightenment for a moment. Let's seek the endarkenment. Let's see what happens if we just stop. There are these quotes by self-help gurus like Tony Robbins that say, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I say, no, no, no. Sometimes when we're not growing, we're deepening.
Hmm.
We're enriching our roots. We're connecting to one another. We're embodying our wisdom.
Hmm.
We're claiming it.
Hmm.
We're becoming more sovereign and more whole. That's what a descent to the underworld looks like. It means for a little while, we're not going to worry about all of these things out here. We're not going to listen to the self help gurus telling us, pick yourself back up by the bootstraps. We're going to say, no, I'm going to be here. I'm going to let myself undo. I'm going to let myself unravel because when we do that, we are closer to the imaginal world where anything is possible, where we can rebuild our lives and our society than we ever are at any other point in time in our life.
It actually sounds a lot like a wayfinder, and it sounds very shamanic in nature.
Yes,
You know,
I would
yeah. Does that,
I would agree.
yeah. And so, and uh, in that framework, it's actually then uh, a practice that becomes one of it's very deepening, but it's also the reflecting and asking for help and the honoring of the help provided for you on that plane of understanding, which is a much different pace and a much different presence than going for it all the time, than, vibrating at the highest frequency, than getting as bright as shiny as you can. And um so and it's slower, but but sometimes you have to slow down to go faster
Mm,
because you need that grounding. Um I don't know, this is interesting because I'm just feel like I'm just sitting here processing this right out loud about how different the approach to speaking to women now in middle age can be.
yes.
Because and I'm having these little epiphanies just sitting here, we know about the hormonal change. And we know that you're sandwiched between taking care of people older than you and people younger than you yet. But yet you've got this identity emerging in here that is very different,
Hmm.
where people question things. They have honest questions. Am I in the right relationship? Am I living in the right place? Am I working at the right place? Have I been and even dared to become the person that I think I'm supposed to be, or want to be? And none of those are fast answers.
No, but they're sacred questions.
Yes,
And what a time to be asking them and to not have judgment over the answers. Because just because you might ask yourself those questions and decide the answer is no, it's not the right relationship, no, it's not the right job, it doesn't mean that you made wrong decisions.
correct.
There are stages in life, there are chapters in life,
Right.
and everything was right for you at the time.
That's correct.
So this journey requires a lot of grace and a lot of self-compassion
Yes.
and a tribe and community of other women that understand what this is like. Because what we're talking about here, to do this alone is tricky because all of what we're conditioned kind of runs against it.
Mhm.
So it's really easy to be in this space of undoing and think that you're doing it wrong, that it's taking too long. So finding people, finding resources, examining concepts like the dark night of the soul,
Mhm.
and realizing that humans have gone through times like this since the beginning.
Right. Well, I think that's a super good point because, speaking from the '80s language, a super good point because our culture is very fast. The resources are very fast. I mean, every 90 days, our medical knowledge in the entire world doubles.
Mm,
That is not what happened 100 years ago. Every 90 days.
it's extraordinary.
Yeah, I know, and so it's really hard to keep up, and people are mad when physicians don't keep up. But if we understand this concept that maybe we're not meant to, that we're maybe meant to, and I don't mean be out of step with what's safe and all that. I mean, we need to take into our resources and responsibility how we wanna direct those stages this next stage in our life, in the stage that's, impending and looming right there.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that, the things that feel shiny, new, round, and flat, you know, are probably not the shiny objects we need to be going towards. That there isn't a quick fix for this. Even when we try to take hormones back to when you're 20 or 30 to say that's going to protect your bones or heart, we don't know the answers to that scientifically. We don't know the answers to that clinically. We don't really know what levels they need to be at. And I keep picking on hormones because that's now the focus in menopause, not only literature, but the culture. And I'm doing this because I'm balancing out what is that transition meant to look like versus what is actually being influenced and marketed and talked about, And I think that that's really important because there's so many approaches to that. It's a wide, varied topic. And often at this time is the first time that women really take a serious look at their health
Yes.
because the years between 20s and their 30s, they're, child rearing. So they have an OBGYN, they're having babies or not. And that's usually the type of care. And then as things begin to change, it's like it turns into what's wrong with me,
Yes.
which
And
is,
the focus is always on maintaining,
yeah,
our sexual libido, maintaining our hair, maintaining this. And, I don't have an opinion one way or the other about people taking hormones. I think everyone needs to do what's right for them, but it is undergirded by the idea that we need to stay sexually active. We need to stay youthful in our, skin and hair and everything for as long as possible. We're just trying to stretch that runway out instead of, coming back to this idea of it's a cycle.
mhm, yeah. Anti-aging, I was never, for that because I just and then and I just wasn't, and because it doesn't make sense. It never made sense to, drive things back to your youth because the recovery or recapturing is not what we're trying to do.
Oh, and I don't want those years back.
Yeah, I'm with you there. There's some things I would do differently,
Sure.
but, and now, where I'm at in, as being 63 years old, I actually really like it.
That's what you always hear, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm 53, and so I'm right behind you, and everything you hear is, yes, it just gets better and better.
Yeah, and it's there's There's something about it when I say, gosh, I've been practicing as a physician for 33 years, and people look at me like I'm only 27 years old, and it's like, yeah. And so you weren't even born yet when and so there's something now that feels different for me. And there's a platform that I've taken now, in the culture and social media and things like that from this same perspective. But what I'm really appreciating is the depth of the story, the depth of really the pause, and the depth of the sacredness of this, that it's
Mhm.
not something to solve for a woman.
Amen. I mean, that's it right there. It's not a problem to fix. It's not something to solve. I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's
So
a stage to embody. I think that's
yeah.
what we might say.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I'm actually, kinda keen about what's around the corner for all the things I'm doing, that had I not done all the things I have done already, I wouldn't be able to be in this space now.
Seeing that gratitude, that's something that you get when you're older.
Mhm.
That beautiful gratitude. And the word that has come up so often for me in my own conversations with people is the word sovereign.
Yes,
Oh, what a beautiful word.
yes.
A- And
So
it's a
explain that for people because it's not a religious word exactly.
no. And, to be honest, I feel like I'm still learning it myself because it wasn't all that long ago that someone said it to me. And I just said, tell, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
It is this embodiment of our wholeness. That's how I see it. It's authenticity, it's self-love, self-compassion, but it's also this place of really understanding how interconnected we are. And so it's both and.
Yeah, nice,
Mm.
nice. And that would bring about an improved or increased self-awareness, an increased ability to stand with grit and grace, and to even see the rough places dissolved with grace
Mhm.
because we're just standing and being.
Mhm. And I just think women, we're just so set up to come into our sovereign selves during our and maybe earlier, as you suggest, coming into this space or as women and guiding our society from a place of wisdom
Mhm.
rather than, sort of just this knee jerk, feel good, quick fix thing that's gotten so much attention.
Yes. So, sovereign beings, not broken, able to go deeper, going slower to experience the beingness of what the next phase is.
All the while, guiding others, groups, communities, families towards that wholeness for themselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that just summarizes it beautifully between the two of us. That was really a very harmonious statement there.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, wonderful. Jump to the practice for just a minute. You've done a TED Talk, you've got some books out. Bring to us and share with us where can we find all this information to dig deeper and to learn more?
Oh, thank you. So, first, I would love to share that I do have a TED Talk that was released this summer,
Nice.
and it's on everything that we're talking about here. It's on elderhood, it's on menopause as a time to pause, it's on the importance of initiations and ceremonies in all stages of life. So, this is not just a talk for women in menopause.
Mhm.
It was very important to me that I made this idea bigger than just menopause, right? Because we're missing ritual, we're missing ceremony in all kinds of life stages.
Nice. Gotcha.
So that's pretty easy to find, just
Thank
my name and TED Talk. And then I'm also really excited to announce that I've got a new book coming out March 31st, 2026.
Nice.
It is called The Essential Ingredient Remaking Ourselves in Times of Crisis.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And it is an exploration both on the breakdown liminal stages that we're talking about, on personal levels and on societal levels.
Okay. We've got both of those right now. Got that
We
all
do.
we've got that all happening as I see. It's a show out there. And sometimes a show an ear too.
It is, and I wanted to write something. I just received an endorsement the other day, and she said that the book reads like a survival guide for our times.
Wonderful.
And so I think if for people out there that are like, "How do I
Yeah.
walk through these times?" Which, like you say, not only is medical knowledge increasing did you say every 90
Yeah.
days?
Yeah.
But, all kinds of knowledge we're exponential,
Mhm.
and we are just human.
Yeah.
And so how do we navigate these kinds of times? And so if this book can be a help in that, I'm glad.
That's great. And we will put the resources on the notes for the show so people will be able to find it. And they'll be able to find your TED Talk as well, and then your current book that you have. So that's wonderful. Well, Keri, I'd like to thank you for taking your time to visit with us today and to be in conversation about this really, uh, I think, best way to approach change, and best way to approach being a female of our time, and best way to approach, all the things that are constant and change being one of the most important things. So thank
I'm
you very much.
so glad to have been in conversation with you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, folks. We're so glad that you were here with us, and we want you to rate and review this podcast because that always helps us get better visibility, and share it with your loved ones. Share it with your girlfriends. Share it with the book club. Share it with your friends. Get out there and spread this around because this is a very important message. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. And there's a lot of gold and richness inside of you to explore. So I would say dig at it. See you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of the Dr. Mary Lauder podcast show. I hope you've heard something today that made you think, laugh, or say, well, now that was a plot twist I didn't expect. Just remember, your health journey is more than lab results and supplements. It's spirit, soul, and story, and sometimes a gadget or two you probably should have returned. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share our podcast with someone you love. If you didn't like the show, well, maybe don't tell anybody then. And if you want more soulful medicine, curious conversations, and tools that actually help, visit me anytime at drmarylauder.com. Until next time, stay kind and stay curious. Music today is provided by Mr. Dave Evans. He composed, played, and engineered this song specifically for our podcast, and it's called Soul Strings, an acoustic reflection of the healing path. Thanks, Dave. It's great music.